Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Amir from Backbrace channel. Long time no see. Hope you're all doing well. In today's video, actually we're going to look at how to authenticate single page applications with session-based authentication. We'll be using Django obviously for our backend, while the front end will be built with React.js. React.js, of course, is a famous JavaScript library designed for building user interfaces. But you know that already. And before we get started and get to the interesting part of coding our application today, let's talk a little bit about the main differences between session-based auth and token-based auth. So with the session-based authentication, a session is generated and the ID is stored in a cookie. And you can see here on the screen, you have on the left side the client and on the right side the server. You get the HTTP post to log in with credentials that go to the server. So after logging in, the server validates the credentials. And if valid, it generates a session, stores it, and then sends the session ID back to the browser. Now the browser stores the session ID as a cookie, which gets sent anytime a request is made to the server. Also, it's important to note here that the session-based auth is stateful, which means that each time a client requests the server must locate the session in memory in order to tie the session ID back to the associated user. On the other hand, we have the token-based auth. The token-based auth is relatively new compared to session-based authentication, and it gained really traction with the rise of the SPAs and RESTful APIs. So again, you have on the left side the client and on the right side the server. And the first step is the same. The HTTP post is sent to login with credentials, and after logging in, the server validates the credentials. And if valid, it creates and sends back a signed token to the browser. In most cases, the token is stored in local storage. The client then adds the token to the header when a request is made to the server. And assuming the request came from an authorized source, the server decodes the token and checks its validity. So what is a token really? A token is a string that encodes user information, as you can see on the screen. And we have here token header and token payload. I've talked a lot about tokens when I've explained the JWT or JSON Web Tokens. I have two different videos on JWTs, one with Flask and one with Fast API. I'm going to leave the links to those two videos in the description section below. In fact, one great advantage about using token-based authentication is that token can be verified and trusted because it's digitally signed using a secret key or, public-private key pair. So the most common type, as I said, is JSON Web Tokens or JWTs. Unlike session-based auth, token-based auth is stateless, not stateful, since the token contains all information required for the server to verify a user's identity. Now let's talk a little bit about security vulnerabilities. So as I mentioned, session-based auth maintains the state of the client in a cookie, while JWTs can be stored in local storage or a cookie. Most token-based authentication implementations store the JWT in local storage. So both of these methods actually come with potential security issues like you can see on the screen. So you have a cookie with the security vulnerability of Cross-Site Request Forgery or CSRF. So CSRF in short is an attack against a web application in which the attacker attempts to trick an authenticated user into performing a malicious action. So most CSRF attacks target web applications that use cookie-based auth, since web browsers include all of the cookies associated with each request's particular domain. So when a malicious request is made, the attacker can easily make use of those stored cookies. On the other hand, for the local storage, you get the cross-site scripting or the XSS. And XSS attacks simply are a type of injection where malicious scripts are injected into the client side. And usually this is performed to bypass the browser's same origin policy. So web apps that store tokens in local storage are open to XSS attacks. So open a browser and navigate to any site. Then open the console in the developer tools and type json.stringify local storage. Then press enter. This should print the local storage elements in a JSON serialized form. And yes, it's that easy for a script to access local storage. And we are almost there. So all in all, we're going to take a look at how to authenticate spas with the session-based authentication using Django for the backend and React.js for the frontend. One more thing before we get started, if you're new here, thank you so much for coming in and stopping by. Feel free to subscribe, to like any of the videos that you enjoy really. And if you like my content, don't forget to hit that notification bell to get the latest tutorials, crash courses, and videos from our channel. And for those of you who have been supporting me for the last 3 years, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate your feedback, suggestions, and everything you do for the channel. Now with that out of the way, let's roll up our sleeves and start creating our Django project. So let's go ahead and create our Django project. But before that, I want to create a global folder. So let me first go to my main folder. All right, and let me create a folder. I'm gonna call it Django React Auth. Create a folder. I'm gonna call it backend. Okay, and then cd to backend. And then I want to activate the virtual environment. I use usually pip-env. So if you don't have pip-env, you can do pip install pip-env. Sometimes they use poetry, but I use pip. So yeah, either way it will work. Once you've installed pip-env, you can do pip-env shell, and this is going to activate the virtual environment inside your backend project. So all of the dependencies and packages that you're going to install are going to be installed only inside your backend project. Now let's go ahead and install Django. So again, I'm going to use pip-env install Django. All right, perfect. So let me just clear the terminal. So what we'll do is Django admin start project. And I'm going to call our project Django cookie auth. Okay, so if you will write dir or ls, you will find that we have here Django cookie auth. So let's change directory to that, Django cookie auth. And here I want to do Python. And we have manage.py. That's a very important file in order to create our application. So to use it, I'm gonna type python manage.py start app, and the name of the application, I'm gonna call it API. Okay, perfect. So now we have everything is set in order, and let's go ahead and open our project using Visual Studio Code. You simply type code space dot. So you will need to set it up in a way that code dot can open Visual Studio Code inside your current folder that you're opening in your terminal. All right, so hit enter and we should see Visual Studio Code opening. Okay, and we have our Visual Studio Code open in our folder. So API, that's our application. Django cookie auth, that's our project. So the first configuration step that we always need to do is to add the name of the application in installed apps here. So you can do API simply, or you can do api.apps.api config. You can do both ways. So that's the first thing. So our application is going to have different API endpoints. We will have login, logout, session, and who am I button. So first of all, let me go to views.py. Let me just close the Explorer and let me first import JSON, which is JavaScript object notation module, of course, that's used to encode and decode JSON data. Also, I want from Django.contrib.auth, I want to import authenticate. Also, I want the login and the logout. Next, I want from Django.http, yep, I want to import JSON response. Also from django.views.decorators.csrf. So we want to ensure or we want to import ensure CSRF cookie. In a nutshell, the first line here, this from django.contrib.auth, this line simply imports those specific functions authenticate, login, and logout from the contrib.auth module. These functions are used for handling user authentication and session management. The next line, line number 6, imports the JSON response class from the Django HTTP module. Next, I want also to import from django.views.decorator.http. I want to import require post. So I hope this is clear enough for you guys. So I'm going to use it immediately, actually, this require post decorator to create a function, and I'm gonna call it login underscore view to take as an input request. So declaring a variable called data JSON dot loads request dot body. Next, I want the username and the password. So the username data dot get username, and similarly for password. So what we have done here is that we have parsed the JSON data from the request's body. So this simply is going to extract the username field from the JSON data stored in data for both the username and the password. All right, so next I want to check out if the username and password fields are missing from the JSON data, and then return an error response if they are potentially missing. So to do that, simply I'm gonna say if username is none or password is none, I'm going to return JSON response here. Then I want it in the form of JSON. So detail, and the detail here will say please provide username and password. Now we're going to attempt now to authenticate the user by calling the authenticate function with the provided username and password. So let me declare user variable that's equal to, and here we're going to authenticate, and we're going to set the username equal to username and password equals to password. Next, I want to check out if authentication fails. In other words, user is none. So if user is none, I want to return JSON response. Then we'll open curly braces. We need it in a JSON form. So we'll say here invalid credentials. And also I need the HTTP status code to be set to 400. Else the authentication is indeed successful, and I'm going to pass the request and the user to the login method here. All right, so that's the and also let's return a JSON response. So return JSON response. We'll say here, so this is detail, and here let's say something like successfully logged in. The second function is the logout view. So logout view taking the request. So here simply we want to ensure that only the authenticated users can log out. So how to put it in code structure? Simply we can say if not request dot user dot is authenticated. In this case, we want to return something like you are not logged in. And also I want status to be 400, else we will log out indeed. So log out, and we will pass here the request, and we will return again JSON response, something like successfully logged out. The following thing that we want to do is we want to take the ensure CSRF cookie, and we're going to use that function, that decorator here, and we're going to create the other two functions, the session view and whoami view. So the first function, session underscore view, that takes request as an input. And then I want again to check out if the user is authenticated or not. And the way to do that is simply we will say if not, request.user.is authenticated. In this case, we will return JSON response. Let's set the is authenticated to false. Otherwise, we will return JSON response, and also the is authenticated to true. The next function that I want is whoami view. That's also going to take request. Then again, I'm going to check out if the user is not authenticated. Basically, that's the same code. So actually can do like that and do like this. And be careful here, because we don't want to set simply is authenticated to true, but instead I want to set the username to request.user.username, whatever the username of that authenticated person. And that's it, basically. This is our views file. Now let's go ahead and open our application. Here I want to add urls.py file, and we're going to define the following URLs. So first I want from django.urls to import path. Next, I want from the current directory to import views. Then we want the URL patterns. So path, say here login. This comes from views.login view, and name is login. Let me just minimize this a little bit. And we need 4 of them. So we want the logout, we want the API session, and I want the whoami session and whoami. Logout, we have here logout view, we have here session view, and finally we have the whoami view. All right, so this is our URLs file. Let's also go to URLs, which is in our main project here. So we are registering our API URLs here to our base project. Here, let me just add include as always. So we will need here path API / then here we want to include from API URLs. Also, we want from Django.shortcuts, we want to import render. Now the code for our backend is more or less done. We will run now the migrate command, and we'll create a super user to test in the future. And let's do python manage.py migrate. And we also want to create Superuser. So again, manage.py, create Superuser, hit enter. Yep, let's leave it at that. Let's say Amir at xyz.beck. That's not a real email address, by the way. Password 123, 123. Yep. All right, great. So let's do python manage.py run server. we can do here admin 123. Okay, looks fine to me. Last thing we need to do is to update the security settings. Let's go to settings. So the first thing is the CSRF underscore cookie underscore same site. I want to set this to strict, and also session cookie same site. So both of them are set to true or strict. This actually is going to prevent the cookies and the CSRF tokens from being sent from any external requests. But also I want the CSRF underscore cookie underscore HTTP only. I want to set this to false. This is set to false since we'll be accessing the cookie via JavaScript, via React, via JSX code. But next I want the CSRF underscore cookie underscore HTTP only, that's going to be set to false, and also the session cookie underscore HTTP only, that's going to be set to true. So actually setting the CSRF cookie HTTP only and session cookie HTTP only to true, this is going to block the client-side JavaScript from accessing the CSRF and session cookies. It's going to block your JSX code from your React frontend actually. So I have set only CSRF cookie HTTP only to false, since we will be accessing the cookie via your JSX code from React. And by the way, for production, you will want to set both of those lines to true. So let me just add this here for production, set these lines to true. Right, and let's comment these lines out. And that's it. We are done with our backend, by the way. So we're going to take a little pause, and when we return, we will use Vite to scaffold out our new React project. So coming up next. Alright, welcome back to the second part where we're going to create our React project. I'm going to use Vite to create our React project. So if you don't know what is Vite, Vite actually is a build tool and development server that it's primarily designed for building web applications, especially of those using JavaScript frameworks like Vue.js, React, Svelte, all of those popular JavaScript frameworks. Vite also is known for its fast development. And by the way, Vite means quick or fast in French, vite. Right, so we're not going to get inside Vite today deeply, but I'm going to show you how to scaffold out a new React project using Vite. So for that, you want to type npm create, and be careful, npm not npx. So npm create Vite at 4.4 and the name of your project. So the name of our project here is going to be Frontend naturally, and make sure that you're inside your global folder, the django-react auth, as we have a backend, so make sure that you're not inside the backend, all right? So npm create Vite at 4.4 frontend. Then you will hit enter. Now, if this was the first time, you will be prompted to a question, is it okay for you to install Vite at 4.4.1? You will simply hit yes and enter. And then you will be prompted to this question, which is to select a framework. And as we will work with React.js, so I'm going to choose React. And also you want to choose JavaScript variant. Let's go ahead now and change directory to the front end folder. I'm gonna say npm install. Great, now we'll do npm run dev. All right. And this will start our application on port 5173. So this is our main page, or the default page for Vite plus React. Let's go ahead now and do some modifications for our front end. So I'm going to go to the source folder. I'm going to delete, just for simplicity, I'm going to delete both those files, app.css and index.css. However, there is one package that I want to install, and let's do npm install universal-cookie at 4.0.4. And we're going to work with our App.jsx now. So let's open App.jsx and let's do some modifications. So let me just delete this. I will delete this as well, and the app.css. So that's fine. Instead here, I want to import cookies from the universal cookie. That's it. Also, I want to change the functional component to be a class-based component. So, okay, I'm going to delete everything actually. So the first thing that we want to do here is to instantiate cookies class by creating that cookies object. So new cookies. Okay. Also, we'll say class app extends React dot component. Then we'll create a constructor naturally, and here props, and here super props. All right. And then here we'll say this dot state is equal to, then we'll have the username, the password, and the error, if any. So username initially is going to be set to empty string. Here the password, and the error. And also is authenticated set to false. So that's the initial state of the authentication. So we want the lifecycle method, the component did mount. If you're not sure what is that, I recommend you check out my React course for backend developers in general. I will leave the link to that video in the description below, but I'm not going to explain in details that. So this dot get session here. All right, so that's simply in React class components, this lifecycle method executed after the component has been rendered to the DOM for the first time. So that's a common place to perform actions that need to happen after the initial render, like fetching data from an API or, whatever, setting up event listeners, for example, whatever you want. So that's what component did mount in a nutshell. Next, I want to create a method. I'm gonna call it get session. And here I'm going to use the fetch API to make network requests. So we want to fetch from API session. All right, and also we want it from the same origin, right? We want that URL to be on the same origin with the same origin credential settings. So we're going to set the credentials, yep, and we want it as same origin, right? If you will not try it like that, if you will not do the credentials set to same origin, we will not have any interaction with the backend with Django. And asFetch returns the promise, so we'll do .then and res here. So we're going to parse the response as JSON. So return here res.json, open, close, paren, .then again, and I want the data. So here I'm going to console log the response to the console. So we'll do console.log and data. And in case of the data is authenticated, then in this case, we will update the user state, the authentication. Then in this case, we will update the user state. So this dot set state, and here open, close curly brace, and we will set the is authenticated to true. Otherwise, so here say else this dot set state, and we'll say here is authenticated is set to false. And in case of any errors, we're going to catch them via dot catch. And here I'm going to pass the error as the input. We will log, or we will console log to the terminal. So console.log the error itself, whatever the error is. So let's go ahead now and do whoami as a function that will return. Here we're going to again use the fetch API from API / whoami, and then we have the headers. Content type is set to application JSON naturally, so application. And the credentials, of course, will be set to same origin. Then returning the promise, then we will take res again. Data. And we'll say something like you're logged in. Double G, you're logged in as, and we will display, of course, the username. So data dot username. Let me just make it clean like that. And we are going to catch any potential errors that might occur. So we'll do like this, console.log whatever the error is, and don't forget the semicolon, and we are done with whoami. The next function that I want to create is handle password change. So handle password change, that's the function that is going to take an event. So let me explain very quickly this handle password change method ahead. So this method is going to handle changes in the password, in whatever the new password that you're going to set. So it's going to take the event as input, as parameter. And it's going to be typically triggered when you as a user will type in an input field, right? And then it will update the password state in the component with the new value entered by you. Okay, and that's a common pattern in React, by the way, for handling controlled input components. So let me show you how we can carry on. So this dot set state, and here I want to set the password to event.target.value to target whatever the value that you're going to enter in the input field. And also I want to repeat the same thing with the username. So let's say you want to change your username. So I'm gonna call it handle user name change. So again, it's going to take event this dot state. Again, it's going to change the state of the username to whatever you are entering here, the event.target.value. All right. Hope that's clear enough for you guys. Now I want to create another method. I'm gonna call it isResponseOK, and I'm going to pass here response, or set it as a main parameter. So this method basically is going to be designed in a way to handle responses from the network requests, like those made with the fetch API. So it's going to take the response as we have set it here. And we'll check if the HTTP status code falls within the range of from 200 to 299. We're going to set it between 200 and 299. And the reason for that, to make sure that it will represent a successful response. The way to do that is I'm going to check here if response.status more than or equal 200 and response is less than or equal 299. Okay, in this case, I'm going to return the response.json. Else, I'm going to throw an error. Okay, next, let's create the login function. So login is equal to function that takes an event, and it's going to we will do the event.prevent default to prevent the default behavior from submitting when you will click. So event.prevent, it's always not available. I don't know why in vanilla JavaScript and well, everywhere, in JSX and everywhere. Prevent default. This actually is going to prevent the default behavior of submitting when you will click on that button. And we want to make, so I want to make a post request now to API login. We're going again to do fetch, again API login, and method naturally is post, and the headers content type is application JSON. And then the next line is very important. That's going to include the CSRF token. So XCSRF token is going to be set to cookies dot get here the CS or the CSRF token. All right. Then the credentials is set or are set to, as always, same origin. And then body here JSON dot stringify username this dot state dot username password set also this dot state dot password, and this is natural is going to return a promise. So then, and we're going to check out if the response is okay. So is response okay that we have created, and then we want to console log the data. The next is very important to do. So we want to update the component state to indicate the successful authentication. So to do that, I'm gonna type this dot set state, and we're going to set is authenticated. We want to set it to true, and the username is empty string, password is empty string, error is empty string. We want to catch any potential errors, so catch error, and here we want to console.log this error. And then we want to update the component state to display the error message. So again, we'll do this dot set state, and here we'll say wrong username or password. The last method that it's remaining before we render everything is the logout. And let's again do logout equal to anonymous, going to return fetching again from API. I think this became a song now, right? API, just don't forget the slash API. The route is logout. We want the credentials. Also, we want to return a promise. Then this dot is response okay, not if response. It should be is response okay. Wait, hold on. If response okay. That's is response okay, not if response okay. I apologize for that, guys. So I'm going to change it everywhere. That's is response okay. All right. So let's get back here. Is response okay. That's better. And also we will return we'll return a promise. So here we will have again the data, and we're going to console log that data. And again, we are going to update the state of the authentication. So this dot set state is authenticated is set to false. And again, we're going to catch any errors. And that's it. That's the logout method. All right, so we have written a lot of code, I see. Okay, guys, so now we are going to render like that. So I want to see if not this dot state dot is authenticate, then I'm going to return div with a class of container margin top 3. Then I will need h1 tag, say React cookie auth, const cookies equal to, let's capitalize C here. All right, so we'll do like that. Okay, still we have something not right. So importing index.css. Okay, all of that is really not needed. So let's go to main. Let's delete all that. The index.css, that's fine. Export default app. All right, and I don't know why nothing is appearing. So let me just review the code very quickly and I will be back when I will discover what's going on. All right, I'm back and I've discovered a few errors. So is authenticated, make sure that is authenticated is written this way. So the A is capitalized. The next thing, I don't know why is use state was imported by mistake, and I haven't even noticed that. Import React from React, and there we go. So after the breaking line, I want h2 tag, and here we'll say login. And we will have a form, not action actually, I want on submit. So inside the form submission, we want to pass this dot login. Okay, and then after I will have a div with a class name of form group. So form group. Inside the div, I want a label. So label HTML4 username. So that's username, and here we'll type username. All right, and also I want input field. So input, the type is text, and also, okay, I'm gonna give it a class name of form control. So form control, and also I'm gonna give it ID. So the ID here is also username. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing with the password. So I'm going to take all that actually and duplicate it. So HTML4 username, that's the password of that username. So password. Also the type here is password, not text. So password, and class name form control, that's fine. And the ID is password. But that's not all. So let's just how to do. Let's do like that and put the class name under the type and put the ID under the class name. And then I will shift the closing tag down a little bit. Now I want name to be equal to password. All right. Next, I want value. So value is going to be equal to this dot state dot password. After the value, I want on change. So on change, not on can play, on change. Yep. This dot, our method handle password change. So handle password change. That's the one that we want. Then I'm going to create a nested div here. This dot state dot error, and then I'm gonna create small tag. We'll have a property, or we'll have a class name. So class name, I'm gonna give it text danger. That's red color, text danger. And here I'm going to pass the this dot state dot error. All right, and then after here, I want a button with a class name of btn, the Bootstrap classes, btn primary. And by the way, speaking of Bootstrap, why nothing has changed? And just go ahead and open your browser. JS deliver, right? Bootstrap. Copy that. Yeah, well, actually, let's take the whole thing like this. Okay, save, and boom, apply to our code. perfect. Wrong username or password, perfect, that's also working. Also, don't forget that that's of type submit, so I don't know why I forgot that. Type submit, right? And here let's try to log in. And then here we want to return, we'll have container, again, margin top 3, and we'll have h1 tag, say React, cookie, auth, and also a paragraph. So let's just change that to P. That's a paragraph, and we'll say here, you are logged in. And then after we will have two buttons, one for who am I and another one to log out of the page. And we'll have a class name of btn primary. So btn, btn primary, margin right 2 pixels. Okay, and here I will say who am I, and another button that's going to be red, so we'll make it danger. So let's do here danger. We'll say here logout. All right, and we are done with our UI actually. All right, so quite a code we've written here together. All right, so one important thing to do before we start building our project is that inside vite.config.js, you will need to set the base to static. So base here, we'll set it to static. All right, and that's it. Let's go ahead now and build our application for production. So I'm gonna kill the server. I'm gonna type npm run build. It's going to build a dist folder here with all of the assets. There we go, the index.html. All right, let's shut all of that now. Be careful that what we have done now is very important, because that will allow our Django backend to use this file, all of the everything in the dist, actually all of the assets, in order to serve up our React application. Right, so let me shut the index.html for now, and let's open the settings inside our project. So settings.py, and inside the templates, I want to say base_dir dot join path open close paren front end. Okay, so that's the first thing, static file underscore dirs, and that's going to be equal to the base dir dot join path open close paren, and pass here front end, and also our dist inside the front end that was built by Vite. So dist here, right? And that's basically it. If you will not be able to run join path, if you have installed an older version of Django, make sure to import the operating system module, and then instead of base_dir.join_path, you will say os.path.join. All right, so this is instead of join path. All right, so hopefully this is clear enough for you guys. Let me just go to URLs one more time, and let's actually create a function. I'm gonna create a function. I will call it index_view, and that's going to take a request as an input, and it will return render request, and here dist /index.html. All right, and then after we're going to add that new path here. So path index view, this function that we have just created, name set to index. Double quotes to single quotes for consistency to look nice. All right, and we will not forget, of course, the comma. The commas matter in Django. So since Django is going to serve up the front end, the CSRF cookie will be set automatically. So from the project root, actually, we want to go and run our server. So what I've done here is I've cut the whole folder, the front end folder, and pasted inside the Django project. So let's go ahead now and try out if everything will be as we expect or not. All right, now I'm inside my folder, Django cookie auth. Let's make sure that the virtual environment is activated, and it is indeed activated. Now let's do Python manage.py run server. We don't get any errors here, which is a good sign, but we have here a static file. The directory frontend dist does not exist, so it cannot find actually the dist. So what I want to do now is I will delete the whole dist folder. I'm going to run another terminal instance, and we will go to the Django cookie auth. We'll go to the front end, and then again we will do npm run build. Great, that's the proper dist. Now let's get back here to ppnv shell. Let's kill the terminal. And again, it cannot find front-end dist. So let's check out our static files there. Okay, instead of doing it this way, we can do it differently. So we can do front-end, and we can do dist. Now save that, and perfect. This was the error. So you'll do front end and dist. Now our Django backend is serving up properly our React.js via Vite. And let me just show you in the DevTools here. If you will go to console, let's refresh. You will find here that is authenticated is false. We're not authenticated, right? And if you will go to the application, in the cookies in HTTP 127, you will find here that we have the CSRF and we don't have the session yet. So let's just open, let's keep that open. Now, oops, let's keep that here. Yep. Now, if you will click on view site, you'll find that you are already logged in, right? So let's check out here. In the console, refresh, and now is authenticated is set to true. And let's take a look to the application, to here, and boom, we have our session ID. So you have your CSRF token, of course, and now the session ID has been created. All right, and you can log out. And you'll find here successfully logged out. All right, in the application, there is no session ID. All right, so thank you so much guys for watching the whole tutorial. I really appreciate it. And if you want to see more of these videos, please let me know in the comment section below. If you have any questions, anything that it's not clear for you, also please let me in the comment section below. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and be well. Take it easy, guys.